Hey there, nice to meet you. I'm Patrick, and this is the first video in my series, Sorting Out My Life. This series is basically about my trying to becoming more responsible, more of an adult in general. I've decided to make this a weekly video series in order to kind of document my progress and to kind of reflect upon the last week and then plan for the next week in a rough manner, and to kind of see where this whole road will lead me to. Anyway, so here's what this is probably going to look like. I'm going to make one video each week where I'll talk about my accomplishments, or rather what has happened last week. I'll also talk about what I'm probably going to do next week, and I'll kind of try to show the ups and downs of becoming more responsible, become more of an adult, also probably in terms of acquiring certain skills. And what you'll also need to understand about this is not me trying to go from 0 to 100 in a matter of weeks. It's just trying to show like small incremental progress in certain areas of my life, and my documenting them. And I hope that you will take something away from this. Anyway, let's jump straight into it. I'm using 3 programs, or rather software, web applications. First of all, Amazing Marvin. This is where I kind of record my tasks, and I've got a nice little overview here. Yeah, it's just a basic layout of what I want to do, and I can just drag and drop them in there. So the next program, or rather web application that I'm using, is Google Calendar. This is also 4 tasks, but more in a general kind of outlined sort of way, where I'll just structure my basic day, or at least I'm trying to structure it, because so far it's only worked somewhat to my liking. Yeah, this is basically how I've structured it. I've tried standing up at 6:30 AM, but I've only stuck to it like 1 or 2 times, but we'll get to it right away in the 3rd program that I'm using, namely Obsidian, which is where I'll kind of try to record what has happened, to kind of document my weeks. And before I'll get into it, I've also got another software, namely Rise, which is basically like really the documentation of what's going on when I'm working with my PC. As you can see, there's for all days there's like nice little bars and charts which show what I've done. Of course, this is not perfect because there's still many uncertainties. For example, I've right here you can see that I've got mixing like 2 times, so I need to kind of fix this, and also not everything is yet being documented properly, but this is something that will unfold within the next couple of weeks, respectively months, hopefully. And I'll get a more finely tuned sort of way of documenting what I've done. But let's just look at what has happened this week. Well, as I've told you, I've tried standing up at like 6:30 AM, and as you can see, I started the week like at the beginning of the year, so on Sunday, so it's not really a week, but well, a little bit more than a week. Anyway, I've stood up a little bit too late, and I've got up on time, on Monday, so on and so forth. Like, it's not really perfect, and in my opinion, standing up at 6:30 AM right now doesn't work because I'm so used to my old rhythm, and so I'm going to try to stay up at 7:30 AM for the next week. I'm trying to really stick to it, and I'll see how this goes. Another habit that I'm trying to establish is cleaning up my room on a regular basis, that is. And this has happened quite often actually, or rather it worked out quite fun. As you can see, I've only rudimentary recorded this on certain days. I'm also not sure whether I really want to write this down every day, but because if it works out, then I don't need to to write the same thing all the time, basically. Anyway, just for this week, FYI, it's worked out quite fine. And decluttering is another habit that I'm trying to establish because I've got a lot of useless things lying around that I'm trying to get rid of. And this week I managed to sell 2 items, an old lamp and an unused PC controller that has been laying around for about 2 years. Yeah. Now there's another section. The first section was adulting, with my habits. Another section is health, physical health, namely more specifically exercising. This week I've only exercised 1 out of 3 times. Well, on Monday I did the full routine, which is training my upper body. Friday I've skipped, and Wednesday I've skipped as well, which is my lower body. I did stretch for 1 time this week on Thursday, but I did not complete the full routine, so there's definitely a lot of room for growth. Now, with my diet on the other hand, I did stick to it quite nicely actually. My diet is basically Mediterranean oriented, where I'm trying to limit the consumption of meats, and I'm trying to eat a lot of vegetables and salads. And as you can see, I stuck to it mostly. There were certain occasions where I drank 1 or 2 energy drinks, which is not that great, so I'm trying to get to kind of limit that more as well. And yeah, like one time I ate brownie, and I've been gifted some bakery goods which I ate as well. So I think this is fine. If I've been gifted something, then I'll accept it and eat it. But I'm trying to not buy these things out of my own volition. Anyway, mental, just a short overview about my mood. Generally speaking, my mood was quite fine this week. I was actually quite happy with my progress, but there's still some times when I'm really uncertain because there's so many things to do. Like, as you can see, this whole thing is still only vaguely fleshed out, the whole idea. This is just the beginning, and I'm trying to kind of get a bit better grip on all these things and on the whole series in general. So yeah, the general reflection, like just on a few days I've recorded my mood, or write a few lines about what has happened and what I feel about it. So yeah, like I said, like the general sentiment of my week was that I'm a little bit overwhelmed with all my obligations. So anyway, what I'm trying to do next week is as follows. Well, first of all, as I mentioned before, I'm going to try to stay up consistently at 7:30 am, or at least try to stay within that range. I think this should be possible if I manage to go to bed at like 11 PM the latest. Other than that, I'm also going to try to limit my consumption of specifically energy drinks. And the third thing that I'd like to improve on is being more consistent with working out. As I mentioned before, I've only worked out like 1 time last week, and I've only managed to do active recovery in terms of stretching, respectively yoga, for 1 time as well. So I'm going to try to up these numbers for the next week. So this is going to be it for this video. So thank you for tuning in, and see you next week.